Pushed it twice. Kill him off, didn't you? You didn't try to have enough of this. So Oscar, he said he just thought it may not be worth the hill beans of an idea, but the living room could be a classroom. The master could be a classroom. And then that loft upstairs could be a third classroom, and then it's got a bathroom. And there's a half room, I think, you go upstairs or somewhere. And then he said build an covered walkway and enclosed and covered, and tear down the classroom. You got that there to open. Make it easier to drive around. That was good. If we would be, because when we were looking at, Bill was looking at a property by downtown City Hall, right next to, maybe right next to where the gym is, and see if you could get it, like grandfather did, how far the recess would have to fix, like build right up to where the walkway. I mean, sometimes that can be closed. Well, kind of like, well, y'all, Brett and Joel didn't have to re-elevate their house, or something about like where your neighbors, something about like if they built as was, they didn't have to raise it to 19 feet or something. What was that? Then you had to start all over and do the setback.
That's what I'm saying.
Well, maybe not now because prices are stupid, but see if you get this neighbor over here, let you buy them out of their house, and then you have almost like the whole half lot. Let's buy out all our neighbors. We'll be done with it. You know, and probably 5 years ago, might not have cost you very much. Now, I hope so. Who was I talking to about they were building a house, had plans to build a house? No, it was a church building. Every hills in Gainesville, in Atlanta. They had a building project that they kind of working on and saving for. And now, same exact estimate, same thing that they planned like 2 years ago, is $1 million more because of building stuff. Literally added an extra $1 million to the budget. I'm sure they're building. They're huge. But because of the price of everything else, it's like $1 million more. Well, I remember they were telling me on like some $5,600,000 house, and I go, we need to negotiate contracts. Say, hey, we got to have an extra $100,000 on this. Hey, we're on Channel 5. You see summer from afar? You see the glint of it?
My summer doesn't start until July.
Oh, so you only get one? Are you on the left?
No, I'm going to 10 employees extra hours.
You only get July and a little bit. You only get August. 2 weeks? Not 2 months. 2 weeks. Yuck. Yeah. Admin classroom. Twice. What do you mean? No, I just sent out the reminders so people would have. I've been thinking about it all week, and I was like, this as a long CD kind of read. Right. Kevin will tell you the same thing. That's what I sent it out this morning. Kevin's on board. He's literally said the word. You gotta give me some time. That ain't good. So send it out Tuesday night. He said, then I might have a chance. Because you work Wednesday, so you might do nothing. I need to do better. I can tell you Colossians 1 for Sunday. Yes, I can do that. Well, we did the class and the sermon on joy. There's one little part about first one I want to touch on, and we'll probably number 2. And I figured that would be enough calm enough ground that it would be very calm. I might be able to tell you tonight what it is for next week. No, I would have known last Friday that we were. Well, and sometimes I'm not prepared, and other times I change my mind. I had a plan. He ran into some brother on the job site today, but somewhere else. They hired a young guy a year ago, 6 months ago, because he was working in American Women. I think he's gone. And Dan something on the house. Oh, I forgot about that. Yeah. Got you a blanket. Big old fuzzy one. I'm sweating. Woo. Who'd you get to help you? Please tell me you didn't do it by yourself and just push it out and let it break.
No. And it wasn't as hard as I remember. Apparently, when I had those two guys in their 20s help me load it in my Jeep, apparently I must have been having to pick up the whole thing by myself. Because when I got a hold of it today, and both times by the heavy end, I'm like, it ain't that heavy. Jim was there. And I didn't want Jim to do it because Jim had hurt his back yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, no, I got somebody that's going to help me. He's like,
Yeah.
and we got it. And
Okay.
Yeah.
Your wife doesn't need any more yard art.
Yeah,
She's probably watching Gunsmoke too.
That fell under it's better to be punished than denied.
That.
I was over there with my mom. I saw it. I bought it.
That's right. Ain't nothing wrong with that.
Fortunately, she likes it. Chrissy doesn't like it, but she does.
That's right.
Cut yourself?
Oh, I didn't even see that. That's how observant I am. Grandpa. Didn't you tell me you were going to put fake grass all around it?
No.
I thought you were going to do fake grass, like a putting green back there. Oh, but not all of it? He's not hitting like.
Oh, yes.
Can he eat yet? Solids and everything, no issues? So you're making him steak every night? That's what I heard, right? Let's go. Can Justin cook? Yeah, he can grill. You learning? Can Jaylee? Can Mom? That's right. All right, Exodus 32. We'll get rolling there in a second. I'm trying to think of song lyrics about pressing. I don't know. I'm just trying to think of song lyrics that ain't coming to me. 3 o'clock in the morning, I'll wake up and they'll come to me. All right. Anything we need to make mention of before we get rolling? Oh. Something wrong with his lungs, and he's 94 years old. Wow. Wow. Can do. When do you go back? Tomorrow? There's a fungus among us over here in the green. Look, he even wear the shirt. Let him it's kind of like lepers haven't announced their uncleanness. He's got a bright green shirt. Let him know he's full of fungus over here. So, but that fungus, I told your wife in the text, fungus is a lot better than cancer. So thank you, Lord. So you don't want the toadstools going up the patties. That's right. I was thinking like hot, soggy areas is where fungus grows, like just a lot of like hot air around him all the time is probably the environment that fungus grew in. I'm not pointing any fingers, but warm, a lot of hot air. Are you surrounded by hot air at all times? Yeah. Man, I can get I found behind this and 5 feet away, I can say a lot more to your wife than if I'm sitting across from her in a living room. For whatever reason, I can get away with it from here. Yeah. All right. Anything else we want to make mention of before we get rolling? Oscar, can I pick on you to say our opening prayer this evening? Amen. All right, so Exodus 32 is where we're going to pick up. Last 2 times. We had the 70, Moses and Aaron. They go up halfway. All of them get to see God. Moses gets to go all the way in, right? And gets to see. And we start getting these instructions about how to build this tent, this tabernacle. And really our crescendo of last week was, I'll test you a little bit, the bread of the presence, or the table of showbread. Y'all remember how many pieces of bread there were? 12, which is representative of 12 tribes. Across from the table of the bread, or the bread of the presence, was it has 7 parts to it. There's the menorah, or the candle. And there's a whole lot of information about that oil, and it's to be tended to night and day, and don't ever let that light keep shining on that bread. And then also in there is an altar of incense, and we read several passages that incense is representative of the prayers of the saints. It's used in the Old Testament that way. A couple passages in Revelation we looked at. So you've got representative of the people and their prayers in God's presence in front of this blue veil with cherubim on it, which blue veil with cherubim would take you back to maybe what figure? Blue sky, blue with angel cherubim around. What would you think of? The garden, we talked about all the parallels there. And one of our big points, not last class, but the one before, the whole fact that God wants to build a tabernacle ought to say what to us? He wants to dwell among us and have all the tribes gathered around. But there's still a little bit of a barrier. But man, we start getting these instructions and we went all those, and man, like God's going to dwell in his presence and his glory, and it's wonderful. And that's like 25 through 31, and you get all the priests are going to get ordained and what their robes look like, the sacrifices, and it ends with the Sabbath and how to observe the Sabbath. And then 35 through the end of the book is all about them actually making all the stuff. But sandwiched in the middle, 32 through 34, is the story of the golden calf. And there's a couple things here I want to point out to you. So 32, verse 1. We don't have time to read through all this. We probably do, but just to kind of look at some of this. When the people saw that Moses was so long in coming down from the mountain, they gathered around Aaron and said, "Come, make us." Want to guess what word that is? Elohim. Spiritual beings. We recognize we've gotten out of Egypt. We can't do this by ourselves. So Aaron, make us spiritual beings. A spiritual being, or plural, spiritual beings. Isn't that kind of silly? Kind of crazy? That's Elohim. Who will go before us? And then how does y'all's translation read after that? What does yours say? That's the way, like my NIV. Anyone, do you have anything similar? What's the anybody got New American Standard or New King James? What's New King James got after about the who will go before us?
As for this Moses.
Just this Moses. And I don't know, adding that word, this fellow, it's almost like, that guy. And he's gone, and he's been, gone 40 days. I mean, he went up there 40 days ago, and so who brought us up out of Egypt? We don't know what's happened to him. And so Aaron in verse 2, take off your gold earrings that you're wearing. They got earrings they bring. Where'd they get all this gold from? Do you remember how they got it, John Henry? And you kind of think about after the 10th plague, here, just leave. Whatever. And all that, and they were told, just ask for it. Ask their Egyptian neighbors for this stuff. And it's kind of the text reads there, they plundered the Egyptians just by asking for stuff before they leave. And so that's where some of this gold comes from. And so in verse 4, he took what they had handed him and made it into yours says molten calf there. See, mine has into an idol cast in the shape of a calf. Does New King James have the word idol in there at all? It doesn't add that one. Okay. And then cast it in the shape of a calf, fashioning it with a tool. Then they said, these are your gods, Israel, who brought you out of Egypt. Kind of crazy, right?
Any speculation on how large it was?
Okay, so you can Google Canaanite brass bull, and they've found them like in varying sizes. And one of the questions actually in the Bible, we have no idea how big it was, but they have found various forms and fashions of these brass bull type shapes. I saw one picture today I was looking at that they passed their children before Molech. One of the pictures of him was kind of like a man/bull hybrid. And then the bull is a lot of times representative of Baal or Baal sometimes. So all of this there's a neat parallel. All right, so there's several fall stories of man in the Old Testament in these early books. You get the garden fall, right? You get man's fall in Genesis 6 for the flood. You get the Genesis 11 Tower of Babel. And now you get this one, Israel's kind of history. They're getting out and they sin with the golden calf. Flash forward to Chronicles and towards the end of Israel, or really the beginning of the end of Israel. Can you think of anything parallel with this that happens in Dan and Beersheba? And they go, you remember what guy's name was? Anybody? You had Solomon's son was Rehoboam, and the guy that becomes a rival and starts a new kingdom was Jeroboam, and it's the beginning, and he sets up in Dan and Beersheba to keep people from going to Judah, and he uses terminology that is almost identical to what we're reading here. These are your gods who brought you out of Egypt. So Israel's kind of beginning and end are bookended by this golden calf. Because how many times did you remember it coming up a couple different times in Chronicles and Kings about the sin of Jeroboam? It gets mentioned a couple different, that was the beginning of the end in a lot of different ways. So that I just think that's kind of an interesting parallel here. So they make, these are your gods. They're going to do in verse 5, tomorrow there will be a festival to the Lord. So they're kind of borrowing, God stuff, Egyptian stuff, throwing it all together. Interestingly, while Moses is up on the mountain, does God know what's going on? Even without being there, God knows. And so in verse 7, and I'm curious, Yvonne, just because yours may be similar to mine, what does your verse 7 say?
Then the Lord said to Moses, go down, because your people, whom you brought up out of Egypt, have become corrupt.
Kevin's yours pretty close. Anything strike you in that? Yeah, why does that strike you? And that is a switcheroo. My people, my people, my people.
And Moses was on the mountain 40 days.
Mm-hmm.
It's still amazing to me that, okay, so where's Moses? But why not pick another leader to lead them, Aaron or Joshua or somebody, and still worship God? What they just forsook.
Well, and there's a parallel about, he's been gone 40. I mean, like this 40 days kind of, we don't know exactly, I don't think, how long it took before they were missing him. I think this 40 days may be a kind of a overlap. Where I would say to your point, though, is it's almost like they defaulted to what they knew. How long have they been in Egypt? A long time. And they're God's people, but they've imbibed the culture. How long does it take them to resort back to their old ways? 40 days. 40 days. Bill?
In each of the prior cases, you had the influence of the other Elohim.
Mm-hmm.
In Deuteronomy 32, when Moses is retelling all this, he said that God decided he was going to have an inheritance. He gave everybody else, all those other Elohim, the rest of everything, but he was taking.
I've got another reference to that too that's going to come up. I was thinking of you today.
He's taking Canaan. This was going to be his inheritance.
Mm-hmm.
This was a big deal. And you talking about that shift
of your people now?
Yeah, this is like
so like even if
saying I'm disinheriting these people.
He talks like we touched on it. We didn't go into it deep about that divine council, and there are other Elohim other than the Elohim. That's why he's called the God of gods, right? And there's this kind of there's references to kind of like dividing up territory, and the territory or people or nation that God chose is Israel. And this is gonna come out more about Moses recognized that God was the only thing that made them special. We're gonna get that. But here he switches to now your people who you brought up. Just so you know, 5 times in this section, Moses is going to entreat God. I'm trying to look at, let's see. I did not write down, is it verse 11? Kevin, what does yours have at the beginning of verse 11? But Moses pleaded. Does anybody have like entreated? Or so I didn't write down. There's a couple different places where and it's like this, the picture of, well, in fact, I think, and maybe I can Google this, or one of y'all can. The old King James says God repented of the evil concerning them. And the repent's like, it's kind of an old, some of your versions may have, he changed his mind. I didn't write that passage down, but I was reading. Let's see. What do you have in 14? Oh, yeah, I see the end of 12, you said, turn from your fierce anger, relent, and do not bring disaster. And then 14 says, then the Lord, what do you have, Kevin? Relented. Anybody got anything different? Changed. Relented, changed his mind. The old King James here has God repented, which is kind of not, it's a poor translation. I don't like that word because God didn't do anything wrong. The Hebrew word literally means to comfort himself. Like he was riled up, understandably so, right? Like angry at look at what I just did for these people and how long did it take them to turn their back on. But then there's also a lot of talk about, yes, God was angry. Was he serious in saying, Moses, get out of the way and I'll start over with you? Or was he testing Moses? And there's some interesting whittling there. We'll get to some of that. So these people, and verse 9 says, I have seen these people, they are stiff-necked. Verse 10, leave me alone that my anger may burn against them and that I may destroy them. Then I will make you a great nation. And then Moses seeks the favor of the Lord and says, why should your anger burn against, what does he say? Notice that, your people, Moses. And then Moses turns it back to him and says, these are whose people? Why should you turn against whom you brought out of Egypt with great power? Because God said to Moses, these people whom you brought out, and again, it's a story. And I wonder, I don't know. I don't have a clear answer for you. Is this truly God's character and he's that frustrated, or is it a test of Moses to see, or a mixture of both? That's right. Is Moses telling God anything he doesn't already know? All he's doing is reminding him of promises he's already made. And so he says, your people. And so verse 12, why should the Egyptians say it was with evil intent that he brought them out to kill them in the mountains and wipe them off the face of the earth? Turn from your fierce anger. Verse 13, remember your servants, Abraham, Isaac, and Israel, to whom you, what do you have there in verse 13? Swore by your own self, I will make your descendants as numerous as the stars in the sky. I will give you descendants. I promise them, and it will be their inheritance. That's their inheritance, but I'm going to come back to something for you in a minute. And then God relents, it says in verse 14. Remember the promise you made. Now, if he starts over with Moses, it's still kind of fulfillment of that, right? Because Moses could repopulate, but 12, why should the Egyptians say it was with evil intent that he brought them out to kill them in the mountains and to wipe them off the face of the earth? Turn from your fierce anger, relent, and do not bring disaster on your people. Yeah.
The most remarkable thing to me out of that exchange is how well Moses knows the history.
Yeah.
Remember, he was raised in Egypt.
Ooh, okay. Yeah.
He's talking about the promises that he gave to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob.
Somebody had passed that on. That I didn't think about that. And remember, he's the one that we credit with writing those old stories, whether he got, some divine help of memory and various other things. But that is a great point of not telling God anything he doesn't know, just reminding him of it. Now, this, take a quick detour, is all over 2 Corinthians 1 when we've talked about praying the promises of God. All the promises of God are yes in Christ Jesus. If God's made a promise, how sure is it? 100%. And that's where I don't know exactly how to read this. Think so?
But he was going to let Moses. Remember, this is the same guy that didn't want to be the leader.
That's right.
When he first tells Moses trying to pass it on to someone else.
To Aaron.
But this time Moses steps up.
Yeah. Well, and I'm going to give you some end at the beginning. The end. One of the end points here at the beginning. Moses is a shadow of Christ. In fact, one of the big prophecies is one like Moses is coming. Is a reference to Jesus. Do you see Moses here acting as an intercessor between God the Father. You feel that? Like he is the... And then one of the passages we're going to read later, that one of the ways that the scripture describes how Moses talked to God, do you remember that? Remember that, how that says?
He gets called up there several times. Ain't nobody can go as far as he
You and I, but there, and it specifically says he spoke to God face to face. And you know what comes after that? Like one talks to a friend. Now, if that ain't some, there's, so Moses is a Christ foreshadowing here. The go-between in treating the wrath of the Father on behalf of the sinful people. Some cool stuff here, huh? That's right. It just, man, like so many people have said it here recently, but we study this Old Testament when we're kids, and we get the high level kind of, we know the golden calf, we know the plagues, whatever, and we just don't go back as adults and like dig it. Man, there is some deep treasure to be mined out of here. That is just, we need to dig in. I mean, y'all know I love the Old Testament. I'm not even going to apologize for it, but it just, these stories show us so much about the character of the God that we serve. All right, so God relents. Now, God's hot. He just told Moses, get out of the way, I'm coming. And so, no, Lord, they're yours. But Moses doesn't know what's going on. God did, but Moses. And so now in verse 15, Moses starts going down the mountain. He's got the 2 tablets that were inscribed on both sides, front and back. The tablets were the work of God. The writing was with the writing of God engraved on the tablet. Just kind of go into detail. Who made the tablets? God did. All right. And Joshua in verse 17, so he must have been hanging out up there somewhere, right? Somebody was it you that brought this out last time, or was it John? Somebody brought it out that maybe it was you, that he was hanging around up there. He wasn't all the way in like Moses was, but he's outside the pillar of fire. Now, interestingly, one of the passages where Moses is going to make a tent that he goes into and sees God's glory, Joshua's allowed to hang out in that tent. When Moses has to leave, Joshua gets to hang out there. Interesting. We'll cover that in a second. So Joshua in verse 17, here's the noise of the people shouting. He says to Moses, there's a sound of war in the camp. And Moses says, what do you have there, Kevin, in verse 18?
It is not the noise of the shout of victory, nor the noise of the cry of defeat, but the sound of singing I hear.
What are they doing down there? So 19, Moses approaches the camp, saw the calf and the dancing. His anger burned, and what does he do? Throws down the tablets out of his hands, breaking them into pieces at the foot of the... God's mad enough. Get out of my way. Moses, no, Lord, remember your promises. Now Moses comes down and investigates for himself. Woo! You know what I mean? And now he's mad. He's mad. Rightly so. And man, I don't grab verse 20. Bill, read your version of verse 20. Yep, yeah, that's it. Bill B.
He took the calf which they had made, burned it in the fire, and ground it to powder, and he scattered it on the water, and made the children of Israel drink it.
Woo! How mad is Moses? Oh, you wanted this? All right, big boy. I'm going to ground it into a powder, and he makes... Now, and I wonder if there's a parallel here. Comes up a lot in Isaiah, and it's tied into the New Testament about drinking the cup of God's wrath. And Jesus drank the cup to its dregs. I wonder if there's here's the cup of God's wrath, and Moses literally makes the people drink this powdered mix.
And the mix is gold.
Crazy stuff, right?
That didn't happen in just a few minutes. It took a while.
Oh, yeah.
And then to pulverize it.
Yeah, there's that would be in the category of premeditated. Well, and all the people watching him get it hot, and then watching him grind it down, and they're like, "What?" It's kind of like your dad, like with the belt, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know, like, or sharpening the stick, I don't know. There's some kind of figure that you can put in there, like when the beating is coming, and he's taking his time to prepare it. He's prepared it. And he says to Aaron in 21, what did these people do to you that you led them into such great sin? Don't be angry, my lord, Aaron answered. You know how prone these people are to evil. They said to me, make us gods who will go before us. As for this fellow, and he's repeating it. So I told him, and he kind of basically tells on himself. Now, 25, Moses saw that the people were running wild and that Aaron had let them get out of control, and so it had become a laughingstock to their enemies. So he stood at the entrance of the camp and said, what? Y'all heard the phrase drawing a line in the sand? And he says, whoever's on God's side, and who comes? Levites. And what do they do in the next verse? Or Kevin, what you got?
That's two instances where Moses is worried about
What
other people.
Yes.
He cautioned God about his wrath because
Why should your enemy? Yes.
About a God that does all this and it kills his people, and now he's worried about
the image. Well, we're your people. We're representing. It's God's glory he's worried about. God, do this not because we're worthy of saving. It's for your name's sake, and that's going to come up in a little bit later too, Kevin. That's for your name. And now our enemies are going to think, look how weak and frail our God is, and I know who you are. That's a great observation. So he tells them in 27. This is what the God of Israel says. Each man strap a sword to his side. Go back and forth throughout the camp from one end to the other, each killing his brother and friend and neighbor. And the Levites did as Moses commanded, and how many people fall? Great question, because there's times where it says the men, and it might have been more than that. You know, when it says he fed the 5,000, it could have been a lot bigger crowd than that. That might have just been, what about the women and the children? So I don't have an answer to that one. There's a lot of them that came out. And now it's like whoever's on God's side, and the Levites come, and now they come. Who are the people you reckon's getting killed here? What are they? And why? And some of them who absolutely refuse to get right, do right. He says the people have gone wild. And won't even respect Aaron anymore. Well, this is going to get your respect. So, like some of the ones that not all Israel is Israel, right? And they're killing off some that probably refuse. The firm foundation of God stands having this seal: the Lord knows those who are His. And 3,000 of them fall. Moses says, "Today you've been set apart." Verse 29. Next day, verse 30. Moses says to the people, you have committed a great sin, but now I will go up to the Lord. And what do you have at the end of verse 30? Perhaps what? You have anything other than perhaps? Maybe is kind of the picture. Maybe. I'll go try, but is he certain? I'll go up and maybe I can make atonement, which is interesting because what do they even know about the Day of Atonement yet? They're not going to get told about that till the next scroll. But maybe I can go make atonement for your sin. And so verse 31, Moses goes back to the Lord and says, oh, what a great sin these people have committed. They have made themselves gods of gold. But now, please forgive their sin. But if not, then blot me out of the book you have written. Isn't that powerful? It reminds me of, yes, what? I had to think about it. I think it's Romans 9. Romans 9:3. For I have great sorrow and unceasing anguish in my heart, for I could wish that I myself were cursed and cut off from Christ for the sake of my people, those of my own race, the people of Israel. Basically, Moses says, if it meant me losing my salvation and all Israel could be saved, I'd do it. That's exactly where my mind went today, Bill. And both of them, those men, in doing this, are mirroring whose behavior? Does it not scream it to you? Lord, if you're not going to, if you can't relent, then take me. remove me from your presence. Blot me out of your book. Then the Lord replied to Moses in 33, whomever has sinned against me, I will blot out of my book. Now go lead the people to the place I spoke of, and my angel will go before you. However, when the time comes for me to punish, I will punish them for their sin. And verse 35, and the Lord struck the people with a plague because of what they did with the calf Aaron had made. Anything grab a hold of you in there? I don't know, does he get a pass because they asked him to do it? Did they force him? They surround him and kind of put that pressure a little bit on him. He gets a little bit of a pass. Yeah. That's a kind of like, how does he get off for free?
And he, say also in verse 24, he lied about it. He said, I threw it in the fire and out came.
Yeah. Just jumped out of nowhere. Like every kid who's been caught.
Yeah.
I don't know where it came from. Why are you looking at Tyler Slaughter? Tyler, what have you done recently, bro? Mom, I don't know where this tattoo came from. It just popped up on me, right? That kind of thing. I don't know where these extra set of ribbons. Mom, I don't know where these other speakers came from. I don't know. Just popped up. But it's interesting. God shows grace, but is there still judgment? There's a tension here, and I want you to feel that tension because what's coming is one of the most famous verses in the Bible that's quoted more than any other from this section, what we're going to get to. There is a tension of showing grace, but still, I'm going to have to be just. I'm going to have to punish. There will be some blotting out of those who deserve it. There are consequences. They don't get off for free. Now, verse 33, the Lord said to Moses, leave this place. And here we are again. You and the people you brought out of Egypt and go up to the land I promised. I will give it to your descendants. Verse 2, I will send an angel before you and drive out all those ites. Verse 3, go up to the land flowing with milk and honey, but verse 3, go up to the land flowing with milk and honey, but I will not go with you. Is that a big deal? Crazy, right? Because you are a stiff-necked people and I might destroy you on the way. Y'all go. Y'all go, because if I go with you, you ever told that to your youngins or somebody else, just leave? Because if you stay here, yeah, that's marital counseling 101. This ought to be my first passage I go to. Do your thing to cool off. Because, honey, not that we don't need to talk about it before the sun goes down on our anger, but, honey, if you make me talk about it now, one of us may not leave the room, and I'll go live with my parents. That kind of, yeah, right? Don't go with me. Now, when the people heard these distressing words, they began to mourn, and no one put on any ornaments. For the Lord had said to Moses, tell the Israelites, you are stiff-necked people. If I were to go with you even for a moment, I might destroy you. Now take off your ornaments, and I will decide what to do. So they stripped those off. Now, verse 7, Moses used to take a tent and pitch it outside the camp some distance away, calling it the tent of meeting. Anyone inquiring of the Lord would go to the tent of meeting outside the camp. And whenever Moses went out to the tent, all the people rose and stood at the entrances to their tents, watching Moses until he entered the tent. As Moses went into it's kind of like you're getting a flashback. Like if we're painting this as a story, they're giving you some back history. Hey, there's this tent of meeting. And whenever he'd go in, verse 9, the pillar of cloud, is that what everybody has? The pillar of cloud would come down and stay at the entrance while the Lord spoke with Moses. Whenever the people saw the pillar of cloud standing at the entrance to the tent, they all stood and worshiped, each at the entrance to their tent. The Lord would speak to Moses face to face as a man speaks to his friend. And then Moses would return to the camp, but his young age Joshua, son of Nun, did not. And I don't know why I never caught that, but that's kind of, Joshua is being allowed now. He's being groomed to be where? Take Moses. Is it any wonder that in Joshua 1, God comes in and says, be strong and courageous. And as I was with Moses, I'll be. That's just kind of neat. Like, you remember, there's only one guy that gets to go in. Now, he didn't get to go into the pillar of fire on the mountain where God, heaven and earth kind of came together. But here at this tent of meeting, he's allowed to be in there. I think that's kind of fascinating that Joshua was being set up for that. That's kind of, that was cool to me when I was reading on some of that. Now, all this started because God said in 33:3, y'all go, but I'm not coming with you. Right? So Moses said to the Lord, you have been telling me, lead these people, but you have not let me know whom you will send with me. You have said, I know you by name, and you have found favor with me. If you are pleased with me, teach me your way so I may know you and continue to find favor with you. Remember that this nation is your people. And the Lord replied, how do you have it there? My presence will go with you. And does God respond to Moses' entreaty again? I'm not going with you. God, I want to. You said you knew me by name. You said I had favor. I'm begging. Teach me your ways. I want to continue to get to know you and find favor with you. And God says, all right, my presence will go with you. And then Moses says, and we may have to end here because we're getting short on time, but then Moses says in verse 15, if your presence does not go with us, do not send us up from here. How will anyone know that you were pleased with me and with your people unless you go with us? What else will distinguish me and your people from all the other people on the face of the earth? What does Moses know? We are nothing without you. What makes us different than any other person on the face of the planet? What's the only thing that makes us special? Because you're with us. And boy, you know, this is being written in the Torah. Boy, if Israel could have remembered this. What are you without God's presence? What's the only thing the only reason the battle belongs, the only reason you won, the only reason you've got territory, the only reason anything that makes you special is because God chose you and and Moses says, God, if you're not going to go with us, then don't even we're not leaving here because we're nothing without you. What are you going to say, Bill?
When he refers to them as stiff-necked,
Yes.
it reminds
Oh.
me of Stephen.
Hyperlink to New Testament.
What was the last thing he said to them before they killed him?
You stiff-necked, uncircumcised rebels. Yeah.
Bring them back to that.
That's a great point of that hyperlink to take them right to this moment. You're a stiff-necked people. Kevin?
Third instance of Moses worried about
What are they going to do? We're nothing with it. Nobody, because if we go out, think about how God had to get them out of Egypt. They're vulnerable. They have no homeland. They're nomads. And so when you're a people without a country, we are sitting ducks before all these other nations. And God, if you're not with us, there's no power. How supposed to people supposed to know you have any favor with me, that I have any favor with you, unless you're with us? Great point.
It's got to show too that God can definitely see that Moses is always.
Man, it just.
He has no doubt that Moses is always.
Can I just tell you, I mean, we know Moses, right? We know it. Preparing for this class, does it not give you a whole new appreciation for the man that Moses was? The man that Moses, I mean, just we could say, oh, look at what he got to experience. I think he got to experience because of the man he was. He's the guy, Hebrews 11, who chose the reproach of Israel over being top dog in Pharaoh's household. Look at what God says in 17. And the Lord said, after this, don't even, if you're not going, we're not even going to leave. And God says, I will do the very thing you have asked because I am pleased with you and I know you. Think God knew his name? Think he knew Aaron? It's like, what's he saying here? Something about name means something. Because Moses referenced that earlier about your name. And now God's saying, there's something more than just knowing that his name is Moses. You know what I mean? There is this connect. I know you by name. And then Moses says right after this 18, why? Why do you reckon he wants to see God's glory here? And it's speculation, but it's, God, I'm not leaving. Unless you're with us. I'm going to have to stop there. I don't even want to stop. I want to just keep going. I'm telling you, I want to just keep going and going. But I'll force myself. Well, let me finish 33 really quickly. Moses says, now show me your glory. And the Lord said, I will cause all my goodness to pass in front of you, and I will proclaim my name, the Lord, Jehovah, Yahweh, in your presence. I will have mercy on whom I will have mercy. I will have compassion on whom I will have compassion. But, he said, you cannot see my face, for you can't see me and live. Now, verse 21. So here's what I think. When he's saying this, he's asking for more. What the fancy term is a theophany. God is appearing in a form. Moses has already gotten that, because remember, we even said the 70 got to see God. But this is different.
He's seen the form of God. He didn't see.
Okay, that's the difference.
He didn't see the glory of God.
He talked to him like a friend talks to a friend. He's asking for, no, I want to see you in your. I don't want to see a vision of you. I don't want to see a form of you. I don't want a burning bush. I don't want a glowing light. I don't want a vision. I want to see you. And he said, you can't. That's right. I want to see in the full glory, which New Testament, God dwells in unapproachable light. So, but you can't do that. But 21, there is a place near me where you may stand on a rock. And when my glory passes by, I'll put you in a cleft in the rock and cover you with my hand until I pass by. And then I'll remove my hand and you'll see my back, but my face must not be seen. And the way I love to word this is you can see the wake of God's glory. Can't see the boat, but I'll let you see the wake of God's. And just, he doesn't even have to see all of it, but just getting to see the backside of God's glory. What does it do to Moses? Yeah, that's where we'll pick up. 34 is where we'll pick up for next time. Hey, read slow, read deep, read like soak it in. So you're going to get 34, right? Then 35 through 40 is almost verbatim, not all the details, but almost verbatim, like all the instructions earlier were this is how you're going to make it. Although I'll tell you, compared to Leviticus, he's not really giving them specifics to build. He's giving them a really good idea. He's painting a picture. Leviticus is where they get real detail, but he gives them a picture of it. Then this happens, and then they actually go and make it, is what happens in the chapter 35 through the end. But there's something real interesting at the end of chapter 40. But if you want to read for next time, though, we're going to do 34. And then if you want to go digging for that real interesting thing in 40, I think I even put it in the text, but there's something that just wouldn't necessarily jump out at you, but it don't make sense unless you think about what's just happened here. And that's what we'll talk about next Wednesday.
Didn't you say we were going to get back to, was God meaning what he said and changed his mind, or was he working?
Was it that one? I said I don't have a good answer for it. Well, there was something we were coming back for, but I don't think that was it. There was a couple. I didn't get it finished all that I had prepared, so I can't tell you what all we didn't get back to yet. All right. Yeah, I'm going to stop there. I have to stop there. I don't want to stop. This is where I want to just keep studying until midnight, but we'll stop. All right, we'll pick up in 34. I love studying the Bible with you guys.